I've had several requests for making white chili, so here it is. This is the recipe I developed today for white chili. Ladies and gentlemen, it's delicious. Well, howdy folks. Welcome to Texas Cooking Today. We are in the heart of Dallas. That's downtown Dallas behind me there. And folks, we're about to get in the kitchen and cook some delicious food. What you're watching right now is one of my tutorial versions, and if you don't need to know the techniques and how to pull this recipe off, if you just need the recipe, the previous episode, it's much shorter. That's just the recipe version. But these tutorials go into technique, methodology, history, and a lot of other information. Let's get in the kitchen and get busy cooking this delicious dish. Come on. Today I am going to make white chili. I've had several requests for white chili for a couple of years now. And as I mentioned in my comments that, believe it or not, I listen to the comments and I read the comments and I do pay attention. And sometimes it takes me a little time to get around to a certain dish, but I'll always get around to it. I've had several requests for white chili and I decided, okay, it's time for me to pull something, to put together something that's really going to be delicious. So I decided to just sort of pull it out of thin air and create a white chili recipe based upon what my personal expectations would be if I were going to sit down and eat a bowl of something that was called white chili. Okay, very simple. Now, white chili traditionally is a chili that is made with chicken, okay? And there's a lot of different approaches to this. I didn't want to get into any of that. I didn't want to be influenced by other chefs' recipes. So what I'm going to do today, without having ever looked at any other white chicken recipes, I'm going to invent what I believe I would enjoy as a white chili recipe. And we're going to do that together. It's going to be fun. We're going to go through the whole thing. Now, I've already put out the ingredients and I've developed an ingredients list that I believe is going to produce a very good tasting chili. Who knows, during the cooking I might have to adjust something. I might need a little more or a little more salt. I might need a little more of one of the spices. I might need a little more acid in the dish. I might have to make a change because of that. Don't know yet, because this is the very first time I have created a white chili. Now, this is something I do a lot of, okay? I do recipe development. I create recipes. And because I have a strong familiarity with certain flavors, I'm able to put things together quickly, okay? Often, when I do a recipe like this, it's either spot on or it needs only a slight change. If it needs a slight change, that's something we will discuss during this video. All right, so this is a full-on tutorial on how to make white chili. I've got a lot of ingredients out right here. Let's take a look at what's there and get busy cooking this up. Come on. Today, as I mentioned, I'm making a white chili, and the ingredients involved in white chili are predominantly going to be white colored ingredients, with one exception. I believe chili deserves its namesake, so you got to use some chilies. If you can't find poblanos like this, why don't you find some bell pepper? The bell pepper will cross over well for this recipe. It has no heat. The poblano has a very mild heat, and in my view, it's a really good option, has a great flavor. So I like it with that poblano because I like a little bit of spice in my chili, and this will give a very mild edge to it, but not much. A white onion, we have chicken, of course. Here I have avocado. I'm going to use that to top it later. Here I have some chickpeas, also called garbanzo beans, okay? If you don't want beans in your chili, don't put beans in there, but in this one, I want to show you what we do. I have some of these that are already soaking. Also, we're going to be using some white wine, chicken stock, a little bit of cooking oil, and our spices will be cumin, white pepper, some garlic, and salt. And we're going to combine these to produce the most fantastic tasting chili. Also, and you don't see it out here, I'll probably be using some sour cream to top with, just like I do the avocado, and I will most likely use a little bit of cornstarch and water to thicken my chili with after it has simmered off. So folks, let's get busy making white chili. Folks, I have some garbanzo beans here. Now I've taken that cup of garbanzos and I put it down into some boiling hot water. After putting it in the boiling water, I just turned off and have left it open. All I'm doing is just basically giving them what we call a quick soak. If you want, soak these overnight, then cook them when it's time to cook your chili, but cook them separate and do not cook them with salt. You salt beans and legumes after they're cooked. We're going to be adding this to our white chili. Now, when it comes time to work on your chilies, you need to get rid of that skin. If you put these in a hot oven, like under a broiler, and give it a few minutes, and then turn them and give it a few more minutes, then take them and put them in a plastic bag. It'll sweat that skin right off of there. You can also do what I'm doing, put it right on the flame. And when you're finished with the charring, you can peel that skin right off. It's a wonderful way to get good flavor with that chili. You can do this on a grill. You can heat these any way that you want. You can even use a torch. I've done that myself. All you were trying to do is to remove the excess skin so we don't have a lot of skin fragments floating around in our chili. That's just kind of nasty when you have any kind of a dish and you have a bunch of these little fragments going on. It's not very pleasant. So we try to get rid of that. See, we're starting to char that. It'll come along just fine. Once these are charred, I want to remove that skin. We'll get busy slicing them. So as you see, we char them all the way around. Now folks, don't worry when it comes to chilies and your bell pepper and stuff like that. If you've never done something like this, you're not going to hurt it. You're not going to burn it. It's not going to damage the poor little darling. Don't worry about that. Your chilies are going to come out just fine. All right. These things are desert plants, and they do very, very well when it comes to high heat, including direct on flame. So go ahead and get bold with them. Get them in the heat, and let's get that skin removed. When it comes time to take care of your chilies, because you've charred all of that off, you can peel this, as you see right here. Isn't that interesting? Now you can either peel all of that by hand, doing it like this, and kind of leaving behind all of those oils and also that wonderful charred flavor that you have. Or you can go ahead and just break out some water, wash it off, and de-seed it. Either way works fine. This way preserves a little more of that deep chili flavor, but I find when it comes to poblanos, they are so packed with flavor, you don't have to worry about it just a whole lot. Now, if you want to keep that charred flavor, do not wash it. If you wash it, then you remove a lot of that good charring flavor. Otherwise, keep that on there, and easy to do. Now I'm going to do this underwater so I can show you real quick what to do with the inside, because this is piping hot and it's kind of burning me. So I push my finger in. Let me turn this off, that cooled it. Push my finger in and pull down, okay, and that just splits it right open. I can peel this back at the crown at that point, guys. See how easy that is? Ouch. And more water, there we go. And that crown will simply peel free. All right, now you have the crown and the seed pods. Don't pull down because it tears the meat, but you can pop that upwards and you get the whole thing right there. The rest cleans up very easily, and we're ready to go, okay? So folks, if you would go ahead and finish getting the skin off of yours, and we're up and running. We've removed those skins, and it's time to get everything fixed up. So what I want to do is to simply dice out my chilies. Now I'm going to be going for about a 1/2 inch square pieces on these. Okay. And as I mentioned, about 1.5 cups, roughly. It's not exact, but it's close. Now, when prepping out your onion, do not cut the root end off first. Cut the stem end off first. If y'all would, Please ignore my thumb. I bashed that with a hammer this week. It was a lot of fun, let me tell you. So I'm going to take off the outer part of this onion. Now once you get the outer nastiness off of that, go ahead and split the onion from the root end down to that first end you cut. And what that does is gives you a couple of nice halves there. And what I want to do is to get even dice, but you're dealing with something three-dimensional and layered. So getting dice by cutting this way and this way is going to be real easy for all of the onion in this area. But the onion over here is going to give you really big pieces if you don't do this first maneuver, which is take that knife, cutting away from you. You see how I can pry up on that onion? If it bites down on your knife, twist your knife a little. See there? It'll open it right on up. So you've made that first cross cut for the sides. Now we can make our cuts and get perfect dice. It is a method that is taught to the best of chefs for a good reason, because this is the method that gives even cooking and even size pieces. And that's what you're looking for. An even piece gives you an even cook, all right? Now, making cuts from the top down, about the width of the dice I want, right over to where the side cuts start. Sorry, pardon me, that's my poblano there. So I do that on both. And see how that root helps to hold that together, unless you cut through it like I did on that one. All right, so all I need now, cutting the length that I want for the dice size that I would like. On our garlic, we need to get it minced up. Now this is a technique I like to show up close and personal. I'm going to use a little different knife than the last items I was cutting. Take your garlic, flex that, and then that paper, which is attached, is going to break right off of it. Okay, it doesn't take a lot, okay? You don't have to break the clove underneath. You're just loosening the paper. And as you can see, I don't have a garlicky smell because there's no oil on the outside of these yet. I didn't break them open, so my fingers don't have a smell. First thing I'll do when I'm going to mince garlic is I just remove that little callus on the end where the clove was attached at the base of the bulb. Basically where the root begins, okay? The rest of these we need to crush, so when I'm mincing them, they don't bob around on me. I don't want them rolling around and giving me trouble. So I get them under control with a simple little crush, just like that. Okay? Now it's easier to do a nice mincing motion. Now folks, let me show you what I'm doing here. Fingers on top of this. I've got the handle I'm normally choked up on. You can do it choked up like this, but on this method I like to pull back just a little bit and keep this thumb. Always keep that thumb turned under, otherwise you can nip it with your blade. You don't want that because you'll cut yourself. Remember, any cutting technique involves a risk, okay? That's part of using knives. Knives are risky. So there, knock our garlic off of that blade. Not lengthwise, you'll cut your finger. Knock it off like this. If you want, when you're doing that, you can just rub it off on the board like this. So, as we get finer, we can get a little faster. Yes, that was me, not the video. In time, you'll get a rhythm, and you'll get to where you can speed up. Don't try to speed up at first. Just focus on this. Speed will come in time, all right? Now, if you'll notice, see how I sometimes turn the blade away from me like this? What I'm doing is I'm getting a better cut. If I come straight down, it knocks a lot of the pieces out of the way, but doesn't cut as well. When I tilt it slightly, I get a much better chopping action with the blade. And that's one they won't tell you in cooking school. That's one you have to discover by life. There we go. You see, that didn't take that long, and I have a beautiful, fine mince. Look how small those pieces are. So that's going to go wonderful in my chili, okay? Do I need all of that? Probably not. I'll probably use a little less than what I have there. If you're a person that likes a lot of garlic, the full amount. Otherwise, I'd recommend about a tablespoon, and this gives you a little over a tablespoon. That's about a tablespoon right there. It's time to process that chicken. Now, in the event you do not have a meat grinder, hey, I understand not everybody has a meat grinder, okay? But if you don't, it's still a doable recipe. These chicken breasts, just fine dice them. Now, here is a little tip that'll help you if you're going to fine dice meat like this. If you'll take that meat and partially freeze it, not all the way, you don't want it to be hard. You just want it to be where it's almost getting frozen, but it's still a little flexible. And when it's like that, you can cut the meat very, very thin. You can also make very accurate cutting on it. So you can just cube that stuff up very easily when it's partially frozen. Okay, that way it gives you a little resistance on the knife, but it's not hard to cut through. If it's hard to cut through, you got it too frozen. Now, in this case, I have a grinder, and I'm recommending if you have a grinder that you go ahead and use your grinder also. It only makes sense. If you own one, use it. And if you don't have one, folks, I'm going to say this. I've never regretted buying that grinder. All right. Now, there were days before I bought it that I regretted not having it, but I never regretted getting it. I'll move this board to the side so I can get a pot up here and get this ground down. Something that you need to know about using meat grinders, okay? When you go to putting meat in this, never stand in front of this nozzle. Never ever stand in front of the business end of a meat grinder because it spits. It spits juices, and sometimes it spits meat, and it'll shoot them across the kitchen, okay? So don't get in front of that, otherwise you're the what gets hit. Put other things to the side that won't hurt or be hurt by getting hit. So don't have any fresh food or anything like that in the direct path of one of these nozzles, all right? Now, if you have an electric one, just crank it up and grind it out. All right, we have our 2 pounds of ground chicken right down in there. It's just that easy. Okay, I'm going to get some heat underneath that pot. I'm going to put a little oil down in here. There we go. Doesn't take a lot, maybe a couple of tablespoons up to possibly 1/4 of a cup. And then our onion. Okay, I'm just going to get that stirred together. And I'm going to put this over a medium-high heat until it kind of gets heated up, and then I'll lower it to medium, and we're going to sweat that onion and meat together with a lid on there, okay? I usually start with a little bit of salt to season those first early items, because being seasoned during the cooking process actually changes flavors within the cook itself. If you have a salt sensitivity, my apologies. You can go ahead and leave the salt out. Oh, it smells good. The smell of that chicken mixed with the onion. Yeah. Now that I've got a little steam coming out of that pot, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on it. There we are. Lower that temperature to a medium low. My chickpeas have had several hours of soaking now, so all I have to do is turn a burner on underneath these and get them cooking, okay? So I'm going to turn that on to a medium high to begin with. Once I get it up to a boil, I'm then going to cover it, lower it to a simmer, and let it just sit there and simmer. These don't really have to be seasoned or anything until the end of cooking. We'll salt them. Don't salt them before cooking, because if you do, they'll come out tough. Now these have had plenty of time to soak, so it's just a matter of getting them cooked. And once they're cooked, they're an addition to my white chili. Now folks, it's almost to the point where the pink is gone from the chicken. There's a little bit here and there, all right? The onions are starting to cook really nicely, so that's the point where I go ahead and put in my chilies, okay? Oh, yay. Now this is a white chili, and that green is about the only color that really goes into this. From there, it just develops its own thing. Now, cover this once more and give it plenty of time to sweat. Now folks, if the question comes up about alcohol in the dish, you don't want to use wine. Hey, I get it. Not everybody wants alcohol in their dish. In this case, you need to know though, there will be no alcohol in this chili. Every bit of that alcohol cooks out. The only thing we're doing is I'm getting acid from this that flavors up that dish. So if you're not going to put this in there, find some other form of acid, maybe a non-alcoholic version of your white wine. That would work fine. So it's an important ingredient. You really need to consider it. Folks, look here. You see how I was talking earlier about how the onions are going to get translucent. See how they're getting hard to see? They kind of mix or blend in with the colors there. And that's where we want it. That's the point that we were trying to get it cooked to. And now that we're there, I can go ahead and start adding other things. Now, one thing I want to put in there, of course, is going to be my garlic. So let's get that down in there. There we go. I'm going to need some of that salt, so I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of salt. And I will add more later, depending on the taste of what's going on in here. Now also, we needed some acid. Normally, when you're making a batch of chili, you're using tomato product in there. And that tomato has a lot of citric acid. And that's where you're getting that wonderful acid bite in the dish. And in this case, we don't have that. We don't have that at all. So I've replaced one form of citric acid with another. And so in this case, I decided to use white wine. It's in keeping with the dish, a white chili. So that's what I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and get the chicken stock in there. There we go. Yes. I think a little more. So that's almost 3 cups right there. Go ahead and get our spices down in this. Now I want to start with about 1 teaspoon of white pepper. And I'm going to add another half a teaspoon in a little bit. Okay, but I want to taste it this way first. And my plans are to put 1.5 teaspoons of cumin in there also. But I want to start with 1, put that in there, taste it after it cooks, and then add the rest, okay? Just that simple. That way we don't overspice. You can always add more, but you can't take it out once it's in there, right? And we're doing recipe development today, which means you got to give yourself a little bit of fudge room, okay? Now, cover this. I'm going to bring it back up in temperature again, and then I'm going to let that simmer for about 1 hour. I want to stir it every 15 minutes. This has been almost an hour in the cooking. My chickpeas have cooked down nice and tender, so they go right on in there. This, oh yes, this is coming out beautifully. I tasted this earlier, put in the extra spices, and now we're going to be thickening it up. So our simmer is over. Let's take a look in here. Isn't that beautiful? So So you see I put our chickpeas in there, and that 1 cup of chickpeas cooked up to 2 pounds of chicken gives a beautiful ratio there. Absolutely fantastic. Now, what I need to do next is to thicken this guy up. And I'm going to do that using a little bit of cornstarch. Now, normally when you're making chili, you're using tomato paste and simmering to thicken the whole thing up. And that works great. But here, we don't have that tomato paste to use as a thickener. So we're going to use something to help us out. During my simmer time, I added a little more of that chicken stock to my pot, but I had a little bit in reserve, and that is for the purpose of thickening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cornstarch, and I'm just pulling out a couple of big spoons of this, and I'm going to call that a rough measurement of 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. Now when you first put it in cold liquid, guys, it doesn't really want to mix in. It kind of goes to the bottom and it feels like it's going to get hard. Just keep pulling at it and working it for just a moment, and it won't take long. I'll show you. You're going to form a cornstarch liquid that will make a beautiful thickener. There we go. Oh, almost done. Okay, now it's no longer on the bottom. I give it just a moment more to finish dissolving out. And once it has, that is my thickener for my chili. It's not going to be a problem on this one. I turned up the temperature just now because I'm about to pour this cold liquid in here. So I'm pouring in about 1/2. And always stir that as you pour it. And here's the rest. There we go. Now it's coming to a nice, thick material. This is what I'm talking about right here. That looks like a white chili to me, folks. And that looks really, really hearty. I'm looking forward to this. So I'm just going to give this a moment more to simmer. Lower that heat again. And it's only because I want to cook off that cornstarch. So I'm going to give that about another 5 to 10 minutes of final simmer time, and we are finished. This dish is ready to go. Now the actual quantities of ingredients that I've used here today, that was 2 pounds of chicken, and I used the breast cut, okay? So just very simple white meat all the way through on this one. And then I used 12 ounces of onion and 12 ounces of chilies. Now I weighed these beforehand. And this was so close to 12 on both, it was unbelievable. But anyway, you're looking for about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of diced chilies, and the same with the onion. On your garbanzos, these chickpeas, you're going to start with 1 cup of dried. Soak those out and then get them cooked, and then add them to the chili after it's been made. Started with 1 quart of chicken stock. We'll use 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of white wine. That's to add that acid. And we got some peanut oil. We're using 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, 1.5 teaspoons of white pepper, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic finely minced. Should give you around a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic. I would say stay on the light side on that. And then salt, okay? We're going to use about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of salt. Be ready for that. So folks, that is your ingredients list, with the exception of if you want some toppings: avocado, sour cream, cheese, cilantro, little chopped up green onions, all kinds of neat stuff to top your chili with. So just kind of think out of the box and enjoy experimenting. And that is your recipe. Now let's take a quick shot of the chef's notes. As I mentioned in my last episodes, I was going to try to start doing this when I write these down. I don't always do that. So I'll give you a good screenshot of these notes real quick. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we have some chef's notes, and this isn't necessarily something that I had ever intended to show anybody. These are just the notes that I take down for myself when I'm creating a recipe, you know, I kind of jot out my thoughts. And that way, you know, if I miss something, I can usually catch it in my notes. And sure enough, there was a couple of instances in these notes where I had to catch a couple of small mistakes and kind of wrote those in. So anyway, this is just something I thought I would share with you folks, if it can help out with your recipe. Alrighty, let's go ahead and slice our avocado. The first thing I want to do is just cut it in half. Sometimes that pit comes out just like that, and that's the rarity. That's the exception, not the rule. Once we get the avocado sliced open, take this, just peel it. Now, sometimes, like right now, my peel feels a little bit dry. Other times it'll have somewhat of a leathery feel to it, and it'll peel off easily all the way around. Very gently. Come on now, work with me. There we go. We have it all sliced out. Isn't that nice and easy? The chili has finished cooking. The odor is beautiful. The flavor, I've already tasted. It is delicious. This is special. I'm really looking forward to it. Now we need to add to this a little bit. There we are. Beautiful little addition for our white chili. So that was a little sour cream and a little bit of avocado. And I think, frankly, folks, I think I have an absolute winning dish right there. Look at that. A beautiful white chili, avocado, and sour cream, and time to enjoy. That sour cream, work that in. I think that acid from it really helps. It's nice. It works with the white dish too. It works with these other flavors. And that avocado, that's going to be cooling. You can also just put a big dollop of maybe some guacamole there. And there's other things you can top it with. Try some cheese if you would like. Use some cilantro. All kinds of goodies. Use your imagination and enjoy this dish. Folks, thank you very much for watching Texas Cooking Today. Thank you to my subscribers. Folks, I really appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Take a look at the channel. There are a lot of recipes there. Please share this video. And there's one other thing I would ask you to do. I've recently started a Patreon page. Please take a look at that. That's patreon.com/S.Trotter. That's STUARTTROTTER. Thank you very much. Folks, enjoy your white chili. I most certainly will be. And have a good day. Bye-bye. Ooh, yeah.